Hi everybody, welcome to KO Airbrushing and Designs Tutorial Tuesday. I'm going to be doing a tutorial today on surface preparation. I had a request to do so. I'm going to cover a few different things: glass, plastic, metal, aluminum, and just different ways to prep them and get them ready to take paint. Okay, so we'll get turned around and we'll get to this. Okay, so what I'm going to work on first here is going to be a metal bottle. So it's got a metal lid, metal bottle. So what we need to do first is we need to prep this, and then it needs to be sanded. Yeah, in this case, you don't have to do the sanding if it's a bottle that doesn't have a logo on it. But in this case, I want that logo off of there, and you can feel the logo on the surface. So I need to get that off. I want to smooth it down. So the first thing I'm using to clean this is actually a dirt and grease remover. So in this case, or wax and grease remover, in this case, this is the House of Color KC10. This works fantastic on metals, that kind of thing. You probably wouldn't want to use it on plastics or anything like that because it's more than likely going to melt them. The other thing you want to do is you want to make sure that your hands are clean. So I washed my hands before starting on this. And the main reason I'm doing this is just to get any grease or wax off before I actually do the sanding. And there was also a sticker down here on the bottom. I've got to get rid of that. Any adhesive that's left like that. And the main reason you're doing this before sanding is because you don't want to get this into the actual paint. So when you're sanding it, it will actually push the grease into the paint. Even though you're sanding it off, it makes it tough to work with. So now that I've got it degreased like this, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sand it with 800 grit sandpaper. So basically, same idea. I'm just going to work my way around this. I do want to take this logo completely off. And you want to keep rotating your sandpaper, obviously. This is actually a wet and dry, so I could have sprayed water on here first. The paper actually would have worked better. I actually find sanding wet works much better than sanding dry. But in this case, all we need to do is we just need to rough up the surface everywhere other than where the logo is. And then we'll be using a Createx sealer. The Createx or the auto-borne sealers are a really good product. You can, the wax and grease remover like we just used there, that House of Color stuff, you can take that, use that on a glass bottle and spray the auto-borne or auto-air sealers over the glass without doing anything else and be able to go ahead and paint. Okay, so I'm just going to finish sanding this up, and then I will be right back with the finished sanding. You guys don't have to sit here and watch all of that. Be right back. So I got that all sanded now. I'm ready to go. No logo anymore. So all ready to put whatever kind of paint on it now that I want to put on. Almost. So when we first started this, what I was using was the KC10 wax and grease remover. Now this is a solvent based cleaner. So when the paint is already done like it was on the bottle, there's no problem with using that to take off any wax, any grease, anything like that that's on the surface, right? Now once you have it painted, however, you don't want to use a wax and grease remover that's a solvent base. Water base, for sure. So the other thing that I have here is, again, a House of Color product. And this is KC20, and this is a post-sanding cleaner. And what this stuff is it's much more mild. It's not going to contaminate the surface like the solvent-based cleaners can. I mean, I've painted over areas or vehicles and that have been painted just with the KC10. I've never had any problems. But if you want to be just a little bit more subtle, then you would go with this stuff. And you want to make sure once it's everything sanded, if you have any little nooks and crannies like this, you got to get those cleaned right out. And when I actually paint this, the lid will come off because I have to do some masking on the lid. And again, I just washed my hands, so I'm trying not to contaminate the surface. You can also wear gloves. That's completely and totally up to you how far you want to go with that. Get in there and clean out that little guy there. Okay, so once you've got that done, now this surface is pretty much ready for paint once it's dry. It's been scuffed, so the paint that you're going to put on it has something to grab, or in this case the sealer, and I will show you that in just a second. The sealer that I would use on this. I'm not actually going to do the priming today, I'm just working on the prep. We will do another video that's going to be on the priming, okay? So this is the Autoborn sealer line that's available, and they might even have more out now, but I know they've got these 5 for sure. And the nice thing about these is you can mix them to get your whatever kind of color you want for the background. So in this case with the bottle, I've actually got a very, very nice metallic black, black pearl paint from House of Color that I'm going to use on that bottle. But again, that'll be after I do the priming video. But I just wanted to show you that this is what I'm going to be using for primer on that bottle when we get to do the actual paint work on it. So what I will do is for all of the projects that we're working on right now, eventually they will be on a video where they're painted or primed and base painted and ready to accept whatever you want to put on them in any project you want, right? Okay, so that's it for the bottle. Let me grab, okay, here's plastic. Now plastic, because of course it's a much more pliable surface, you do not want to use the KC10, the solvent-based wax and grease remover. You don't want to use anything solvent-based on this. So what I would do is I would actually be using the post-sanding cleaner right from the very beginning on this, because it's a very, very soft surface. Being a clear surface, you have a choice. You could either paint the inside and use the outside of the dome as your actual clear coat. Now, and for prep, as far as that goes on this, I would be using, like I said, a cleaner like this. You can use alcohol. I would try it on a very small piece first to see if the plastic reacts to the alcohol. Normally it doesn't. So I would use an alcohol-based cleaner on something like this. Once you've got that done, the nice thing about this is with the Autoborn sealers, once you've got that clean, you don't have to sand it or anything like that, right? You just spray this right over top of your plastic. Once you're done that, you can go in with a solvent-based paint if you want. You can go in with water-based paint, of course, because this is a water-based system. You'd be able to go in with a water-based paint and just keep going. But the nice thing about the Autoborn sealer, and again, being a water base, once you've got a water base down on whatever you're working on, you can use a solvent-based paint over top of that without any problem whatsoever. So it just opens up your possibilities. You use this stuff as a primer, and you've got the ability to use pretty much any paint on the market that you want to over top of that. Glass, exactly the same thing, except with the glass, of course, you don't have to worry about harming the surface with a cleaner. So you can actually use the KC10 wax and grease remover on this. What I normally do when I'm doing glass is I'll use the KC10 first. So that's the solvent-based cleaner. And then I'll use the KC20 afterwards just to make sure that there's no solvent-based residue left on the surface. Again, you go in with your auto-borne sealer primer, lay down the color that you want with that, and then again you can go over that with either water based paint or solvent based. So I could seal this off even though it's glass, and then I could spray House of Color over top of the sealer. But again, the prep on this, like I said, you're going to be looking at the KC10, so the solvent base is going to work just fine on this. And then the KC20 just to make sure that there's no residue left over. So you would use, if you're not using the House of Color system, I would use an alcohol. And once you're done with an alcohol, I would just use a very, very diluted soap and water mixture, like a dish soap or something like that. And then once you're done that, just go over it with a wet cloth, dry it off afterwards. And that way you know that there's not going to be any residue on there. Okay, and then the other thing that I'm going to do is going to be prepping a dye bond aluminum panel. So I'll just get set up to do that and I'll be right back. Okay, so this is a dye bond aluminum panel. I just started the corner here so it'd be easier to get this off. So with this kind of a panel, if you're going to be using the Auto Air primer sealer, you can actually just spray right over this if you want. It is a painted surface. So with the painted surface, you can actually just go in and clean it. You do not really need to sand it if you don't want to. Me, myself, I normally do, just to give it a little bit of a rough tooth. So for prep on this, water. And this is a wet and dry paper. So what I normally do is I actually throw the paper down, wet it as well. The reason I'm doing this is because the paper will soften up a little bit once it's wet. And that's what you want. You don't want it to be too firm. Especially if you're working on anything automotive where you're working around corners and stuff like that, you want the paper to be flexible. So just give that a little bit of water, wrap it around my sanding pad, and then we'll give this a quick scuff. Now again, this is 800 grit. And I like to hit the edges a little bit harder because the edges will normally have a little bit of a kick up on them after you've cut them and broken them. And basically what you want to do is you want to go until the water doesn't bead up anymore, or until the entire surface has a little bit of a tooth to it so that your paint can stick. Again, like I said, if you're going to be using the primer sealer, the Auto Air, this stuff here, you really don't need to do this. You can get away with just using your KC10 or an alcohol or something like that to make sure that there's no grease on the surface. And you can just paint. In this case, I kind of do like, I want to keep the color that's in the background because some of the dye bond panels that I've been picking up are not just black. This is actually a metallic black. And I do want to keep that metallic black. So with this piece here, when I finish off the actual painting, I'm going to put a border around it that will be a different color. And then the metallic black will be the center section. And I actually have an idea for what I'm going to do on this already. So what I'm going to do with this piece is actually going to be complete. It won't be on this video. This is going to take a couple of videos to get it all finished up the way I want it. But we'll go through priming, which in this case I don't need to do the priming on this. So what I will do is prime the bottle so that you can see the procedure for actually doing the priming, but that'll be on another video. So this video is just about the prep. The next video I'm going to be doing is going to be on priming and then laying down a base coat so that it's ready to airbrush. that'll be another video. So this whole process is going to actually run into 3-4 videos maybe. Okay, I'm thinking that's going to be good enough right there. So now with the paint that's on this, I don't need to, again, use that sealer to make my House of Color solvent-based paint work. I can just go straight in and start painting my solvent base right over top of this. But I just wanted to show you different prep procedures. So if you notice, I'm actually taking and working this quite a bit, but that's because I want to make sure there's a good tooth everywhere. Okay, so now we'll wipe this off and see what we got, because I think we're pretty close. And what I've done to actually keep my panel from moving in this case is I put a piece of duct tape underneath it, and that holds it in place while I'm doing any of my polishing, sanding, anything like that. It just keeps it from moving around on you. Alright, yeah, that looks good. We've got a good tooth happening there now. And I'm just lifting up the edges to get any excess water that would have got in underneath. Duct tape works great for doing stuff like this because it does keep your artwork very static, and that way it doesn't move around much. And these guys. So for my initial wipe, I'll use a paper towel, but for my final wipe, when I'm actually trying to degrease and everything, I always use the blue shop towels for that. They just work so much better. So in this case, I'm going to go back to the KC10. Give this a wipe off. There are actually a couple of spots here in the center where I can actually give this another hit, because I've got a couple of spots here that are just not quite where I want them yet. Okay, that should have it. So again, go back to the paper towel. Yeah, that's better. So what you want to get rid of when you're doing this is you don't want to have any gloss left, right? You want to have, everything needs a tooth. Now you can also do this, like I do this with sandpaper, because all of these pieces that I do like this end up being for sale. If you're doing it for yourself, you can use like a gray Scotch-Brite pad or whatever you want. But if I'm doing stuff for a customer, it's always sanded. Always. So again, this is the KC10, and this is the wax and grease remover. And once I'm done going over this now, so now you can actually see how that black covering of the black paint that was on here is thin enough that you can almost see the aluminum through it a little bit. But that's okay, that's not a big deal. So just after doing that, that's what the wax and grease remover, that's already taken that much more off in the way of debris. All right. And there we go. That piece is now ready to take paint. Now, if you're going to be going in with a water base afterwards, like if you're going to be using a Createx paint over this, then what I would do is actually hit it with the KC20 or the soap and water solution to just make it so that there's no residue from the solvent base on there whatsoever. And that is ready for paint. So there you have it, guys. So that's all the stuff you need to know about prep. If you have any other questions or anything that you think that I missed in the coverage on this, just leave a comment below the video. I will get back to you. And like I said, the next video is going to be on priming. So with that one there, we'll prime the pink bottle, get it ready to accept paint, decide on a base coat color for that. So that'll be the next video. I'll be on prepping that now for the base coat. So that'll be your priming and that kind of stuff. So basically for prep, like I said, make sure that you use, if you're using a solvent-based cleaner or you're using a water-based cleaner, a little bit of, if you're just using soap and water, just a little bit of dish soap in that is going to be enough to take any of the grease off. The other thing you can use is also an alcohol. Because I use automotive paint most of the time for my work, that's why I use the automotive cleaners. So just look to see what there is available that's going to work with what you're using and go from there. But normally just a soap and water solution or an alcohol is going to be more than enough to prep everything to accept paint. All right, everybody, so that's it for this video. Like I said, the next video is going to be on priming and taking the prep to the next stage and getting it ready for paint. And I will be back with that next Tuesday. Sorry this video is a day late. I had to go out of town for a day, so that kind of threw me off. But yeah, we'll get back on schedule here as of next week. Tuesday will be the next video. Like I said, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you think this video is good, please like it, share it. Let other people know that you found a resource that's actually helping people paint, not just showing people what to paint. I think the how to paint part is more important. So like I said, and anybody, if you want to follow me live, follow me over on my Facebook page at KO Airbrushing and Design. I do live feeds over there on a regular basis. The only time I don't is normally when I'm doing my tutorials. Other than that, I do have live videos on over there almost every night. So feel free, follow along over there. If you have any questions, you can ask me there as well. And you can see the stuff that I'm actually working on for clients, because my live feeds are all pretty much client work. So my clients actually get to watch their work being done no matter where they are, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, feel free, follow along over there. And I'll see you next Tuesday. Thank you very much for supporting KO Airbrushing and Design in the Tuesday tutorials, even though today is Wednesday. Yeah, take care everybody, and I'll see you again next week.